Isaac Sarason is a skilled hacker formerly employed by British Telecom-Sprint. With his health failing, Isaac did the only thing he could think of. He ran. He found a haven in a working-class district of the city known as Little Russia. There Isaac took on a new name, Ishmael. Within hours of his arrival, he was embroiled in the affairs of a brutal member of Lomidze organized crime family known as Leo. Convinced by a longtime friend, Frankie, to flee from his commitments to the Lomidze family, Isaac found himself hunted by the ruthless Leo. On a rooftop, far from witnesses, Leo murdered Frankie. Only through the use of his skills as a hacker was Isaac able to drive Leo off. Now wounded, alone, and far from help, Isaac depends on the kindness of strangers. What do you do when the only way to save those you love is through the use of proxies? Colbyjack.net is proud to present Firmware Proxy by Colbytrax. 33. We slipped out the door into the hallway beyond. My knowledge of the Amazov catfish farm extended as far as a tiny bathroom located only a few steps past the door I had lived behind for as long as I could remember. We moved slowly. Fatima was cautious, if nothing else. For me, each step was an eternity. Each long, lurching step lasted years. Each downward step was a month of waiting. Each foot raised was a month of release. Either my sense of space was off, or I had never realized the immensity of the space I had been held within. We passed beyond the hall outside my room into a cavernous space filled to a claustrophobic degree with layer upon layer of sweating tanks, pumps, and piping. The ceiling was cathedral high, the space as cramped as a closet. At a crossroads between two monstrous tanks, we encountered a pair of workmen moving in their thudding, stinking way from one side of the plant to the other. Fatima lowered his head. His hand on my back forced me to imitate him. The greasy bearded men passed us without comment. I turned my head and saw they paid us no more attention than if we were a piece of plumbing. They don't question what they see? I asked in a whisper. The burqa is a form of invisibility. These men do not know me, so they think I am an observant woman, and they don't question. It is the flaw in their view of women. They forget we can see, hear, love, hurt, and act, even when they don't see us. Now hush. I hear something ahead. Fatima spoke softly, showing no maleness in his voice. I heard nothing beyond the eternal gurgling, whirring, and whining of pumps, fans, and motors. There was too much noise for me, too many new sensations for my mind to deal with. If I had been in my normal habitat from before my fall, I think I could have heard what Fatima listened for. As it was, I was as incapable of hearing beyond the hum, whirl, and grind of the Amazov catfish farm as a deaf person was of hearing the beauty of the requiem. I had to trust Fatima. Without him, I would be lost. I could barely walk without his support, both my legs and my balance too far gone to allow me to travel. Even if I knew where I was, it wouldn't do me any good. I wouldn't have made it more than a dozen steps. Fatima pulled me back between two tanks. A thrumming pump vibrated against my chest. I froze, unable to move, thinking only of all the animated beasts I had seen frozen in the headlights of futuristic fighting vehicles in maximum metal. Then there was a sound which drove me to my knees. The ripping, tearing sound of a flechette weapon carried through the air. Fatima pushed me onto my face. My Opemapo null dug into my side. My mind raced back to the rooftop, Frankie's hand in mine. I felt the trembling start. I couldn't stop it. I thrashed between the tanks. My knuckles and knees beat against valves, pipes, and supports. I felt a stab of pain in my thigh, a sharp pain, soon to be replaced by a warm glow which passed from my leg into my chest. My head cleared. Set colors to stealth, Fatima whispered in my ear. How? I whispered. Say, set colors to stealth, like you were talking to an AI, Fatima whispered. I wanted to say that AIs aren't that stupid, but I wasn't that far gone. I spoke the words as Fatima said them. I felt Fatima relax upon me. I must be transparent or something. I knew the burqas functioned like Nona's Coach Vuitton running suit, but instead of broadcasting my position to the world, it should now be making me look like a piece of industrial equipment. Or, since I was on the floor, it was making me look like a spot of slimy concrete. Among the sounds of pumps and fans, I heard the sounds of heavy-shoed feet. The clip, clop, grew closer and closer. I lifted my face and saw the black patent leather lowers of someone who most definitely wasn't an employee of the Amazov catfish farm. The workers wore heavy rubber boots. These shoes were too nice for the space I was in. They were the shoes of someone who thought they were better than the Amazov catfish farm. Something I would have worn only a month before without thinking about it. It is funny how the mind shifts into strange paths when death stands but a handful of steps away. I thought back onto the last words Fatima said to Jakob. Something about Ishik and a ram, of that I was sure. I didn't dare link the Opemapo null into the networks which ran around us, unseen like ghosts of religions undreamt of. I was forced to use my own failing memory. I remembered a ram. There was a story told by the nuns at Ohi's School for Boys about a man sacrificing his son, and God intervening with a ram caught in a thicket. Damn it, Farhan had told me something similar. During the Hajj, Muslims would perform sacrifices on Eid al-Adha to symbolize the replacement of Ishmael with a ram. This all went back to Abraham. The nuns said Isaac. Farhan and Fatima would say Ishmael. Either way, it was me. I was Ishmael as surely as I was Isaac Sarason. Oh, shit! I struggled against Fatima. He held me tight like a blanket made of flesh and smart fabrics. In the distance, over the sound of pumps and fans, I heard the ripping sound of the same gun which had killed Frankie on that lonely rooftop an age ago. I spasmed. I fought against Fatima. I could hear his voice. Relax, relax. They are past us. You don't understand, I cried. Shh, shh. He is gone. He can't hurt you, Fatima intoned with the manner of the best hospice doctor. No, you don't understand. I am Isaac. I am Ishak. Your son is the ram trapped in the thicket. We have to save him. I cried, though I am sure my voice was barely audible over the sounds of the pumps and blowers near us. Fatima pulled me to my feet, saying, Allah has chosen the time of Jacob's passing. If it is today, it is the will of Allah. If it is not his time, it will be by the grace of Allah. There is no other truth. I didn't know what to say. I heard the ripping sound of Leo's gun twice more before we made it out of the Amazov catfish farm. I never saw Jakob again. I like to believe he trusted more in his ability to climb than in the power of Allah to protect. But then again, religion never quite stuck with me. 34. We passed from the industrial dimness of the Amazov catfish farm into the blinding white of a snowstorm. I stumbled with sudden snow blindness. Say, vision glare reduction 50%, Fatima whispered. I did as ordered. The world became nearly as dim as the space I had lived in for so long. Fatima's strong arm supported me, guided me. Without his support, I would never have been able to move more than a step through the rising snow. Fatima's voice was in my ears, low and rhythmic. I couldn't make out the words. They seemed to be poetry in a foreign tongue. The snow froze my feet, coming as high as my ankles at times. We passed a red sedan. It sat silent. The only sign it was occupied was the beat of the wipers and the rush of the heater. I turned to look at it. I caught sight of one of the men from the basement of the nesting doll. His face was a mess of spray skin and bandages. Don't turn, Fatima hissed in my ear, interrupting his incantation. He can't see us. The snow was falling too heavy. The burqas are just another layer of static in the wind. He pulled me down the street. His voice resumed its rhythmic chanting. What are you saying? I can't understand you, I croaked. Fatima continued his whispered chant until we came to a stop between two dumpsters which reeked of fish and steamed in the frigid air. We need to wait here until they leave. I moved to speak, and Fatima whispered, There's a drift across the road. You can't make it through, and if we go around, we'll have to cross the street. I have no desire to be hit by Leo's car. I looked ahead and saw a wall of white cutting across the silvery form of a restaurant on a trailer at the end of the block. I know that place. You've been to Epstein's? Fatima asked. I think he was trying to keep my mind off of what was happening. If that was his goal, it didn't help. My mind registered the name. My body began to shake. Dmitri, Ceci, Zahar, Andre, Frankie, and I had spent our last breakfast together there. All laughter and joy, never realizing David sat alone in the parking lot planning our deaths. Fatima whispered soft sounds to me. The sounds one uses with a child when they are colicky. The sounds from your childhood, from before words had meaning. I relaxed. Repeat after me, Fatima ordered. O Allah, protect me and protect what is with me, I heard myself saying after Fatima, the words of a religion I had no right to use calming me. And deliver me to my destination, I continued to repeat after him, my voice shaking. By Allah, I commence my journey. By Allah, I seek to accomplish the purpose of my journey. What was my purpose? Why was I hiding between dumpsters stinking of fish in a blizzard? My feet were freezing. The prayer went on and on. At some point, we began repeating it. All the while, my mind kept asking me why I was here. Why was I suffering so? Was it that I was born to suffer? Or was it a flaw in my character which forced me to do the wrong things for the right reasons? My mouth moved with the words. My mind spiraled in on itself. It was as if I were seeking the darkness at my core, like a star falling into a black hole. I was shutting down, and nothing could break me from my death spiral. Nothing, that is, but Leo. I heard muffled cries. The new snow made every sound surreal. I turned back toward the car in front of the Amazov catfish farm. The driver was out now, bundled against the cold in a long khaki trench coat. 3 other men stood in a circle between the car and the door of the building. Between the 3 long-coated men in fedoras kneeled 2 employees of the catfish farm. Their industrial yellow, red, and black waterproof workwear appeared to break down into static as the falling snow accumulated on it. I didn't know who 2 of the men were, but I knew one was Leo. Maybe it was his posture, a monster from 1,000 immersive games. Maybe it was his economy of movement, each stomp and kick placed for maximum effect. Or maybe yet, it was the way the other 3 deferred to him. Everything in their posture, movements, and actions reflected beta dogs trying not to draw the ire of the alpha. I cringed with every kick and stomp. The men with him didn't appreciate his behavior. I could see the disgust in their motions, the dance of avoidance of the reality of what Leo was doing. Finally, one stepped between Leo and the motionless men on the ground. With open palms, he tried to move Leo toward the car. Leo raised his hand and struck the man before him along the side of his head. The man's hat flew off in the gusting wind. Swirls of snow danced about them, as if in defiance of the violence of Leo. The man raised his fist to Leo. His 2 partners grabbed at him, pulling him away from Leo. Leo gave him no more regard than a piece of meat on display in a butcher's window. He walked past the struggling men and slowly drew a weapon from within his coat. The man being held back screamed. Leo aimed the weapon at the men on the ground. 1, 2. 2 long, ripping sounds later, 2 sounds which ripped my soul to shreds, the snow erupted into a fountain of red. I spasmed. I rocked. My body wasn't my own. Fatima wrapped his hand around my mouth and crushed me to the ground. I twitched in an epileptic seizure. My muscles tensed as my eyes refused to leave the scene of brutal murder on the pristine snows before the Amazov catfish farm. The angry man yelled something at Leo. The men holding him released him, and turned toward the car. Leo's lips moved. He raised his weapon to point at the lone dissenter's center of mass. The dissenter raised his hands in denial. His body tensed. In a ripping eruption of blood, bone, and viscera, the dissenter exploded across the sidewalk. Leo put his weapon away, made a joke to the men who stood stock still by the car. I knew it was a joke, for his shoulders rose and fell like a man making a black statement he thought was funny. The men at the car mimed at laughter before they entered the vehicle and drove off. I heard the squeak of compressing snow as they drove past Fatima and I. Our burkas kept us from discovery by showing nothing but the swirl of snow where we lay on the ground. A wash of kicked-up snow marked their passage through the drift which blocked our way. We didn't move for a long time. My feet were numb with cold. Fatima's voice whispered in my ear, "And keep away all evil, of which I am apprehensive for my health, O most merciful." Firmware, Proxy, is the second book in the Firmware pentology. That's 5 books, if you must know. It begins moments after Firmware Hijacked ends. So if you haven't heard or read Firmware Hijacked, this would be a good time to head on over to Colbyjack.net and either download the podcast on the audio side, read the episodes on the visual side, or download the Colbyjack Sunday Reader issues 1 through 20 in your choice of either EPUB or Mobi. Firmware, Hijacked, and Proxy are both available in ebook versions from our store at shop.colbyjack.net, amazon.com, and Barnes & Noble. Just search for Colbytrax. That's Colbytrax. I'm the only one. A complete audiobook version of both Firmware, Hijacked, and Proxy is available for download through our shop as well. If you don't need any stuff, but would like to support our work, drop on by Colbyjack.net and hit the pretty little donate button conveniently located on the right-hand side of the blog roll. If you're on a smaller screen, the button will be found at the bottom of the page. Firmware Proxy is released under a Creative Commons, non-commercial, attribution, share-alike 3.0 license. Do what you want with it, just don't sell it, and always tell people where it came from. If you received this from a friend and want more information about Colbyjack.net and our split personality website, just drop on over to Colbyjack.net and select either the audio or visual side. The audio side carries our podcast, while the visual side carries our writings. Whichever side catches your fancy is fine with us. We're of two minds about the whole thing anyway. If you want to get social with me, I do mostly Twitter. So if you do the tweets and want to follow me, I'm Colbytrax. Spelled the same as above, Colbytrax. We could sing that all night long. Thank you once again and have a wonderful week.